All right, I think we're on. We're live. So Matt, awesome to see you and to meet you. Um, so
Likewise, Nick. Thank you very much for having me.
you're a bit of a legend of the Wellington and just the general New Zealand music scene. Like
Oh,
to
I
talk.
don't, that might be overstating it a bit.
Well, how long have you been working in the scene as a musician?
Straight out of college, I formed a blues band called Cool Disposition, and we, kind of played the traps around Wellington and had a reasonable degree of success. We opened a couple of shows for George Thorogood, and
Wow.
um, that was good fun. We were largely just playing sort of blues covers. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Robert Cray, those kind of guys were big at the time and big influences on us as a band. And
Now
but
you were playing harmonica in that act?
I was, yeah. I was a harmonica player. I didn't write songs or sing, or I played a little bit of guitar, but primarily I was a harmonica player. Yeah. After that sort of band sort of petered out, or we at least decided we wanted to try playing some original music. So we morphed into a band called Surge, and we put out an album in the mid '90s, and that didn't really go anywhere for us, unfortunately. We had a song on one of those NZ On Air Kiwi hit discs, and we got a little bit of radio play on some of the rock stations. But unfortunately, that just kind of petered out, and went back to sort of doing blues kind of covers gigs for a while, and then that fell apart for various reasons. People go overseas, they have career changes and the like, and it was back to me, and I just put another band together and started trying my hand at writing my own stuff, and with much more of a sort of a country singer-songwriter influence than a blues one. And that was probably mid-2000s, and I've just been doing that ever since, really.
And were you shifting instruments somewhere in the middle of that? What did you play
Yeah,
in Search?
yeah, I played more guitar than harmonica in Surge, and that was probably a bit more indie, alt rocky, with a blues overlay, and yeah, that was much more guitar. And the songwriting was starting to happen during that as well, although I wasn't the principal songwriter in that band.
How are those skills transferable from being part of a larger band that does blues covers doing harmonica into guitar?
Yeah,
Is it I haven't done that myself. I don't play harmonica, but I have played bass in a band and I play guitar in a band, and I found
yeah,
that role's quite different. Um, so do you
yeah.
feel maybe as a guitarist you can sort of uh, do more of the singer-songwriter stuff or more of the writing than you could with a harmonica? You're more
Oh,
kind of
well, yeah, definitely. I'd always played a little bit of guitar, not particularly well, but I had to play more guitar to kind of stay relevant and useful in the band as it morphed into something that wasn't a straight blues band.
mm,
Um, and and as a consequence, the guitar and the singing became sort of more prominent in my music than the harmonica playing. I still play a bit of harp, um, play it on a rack these days, but it's not a sort of main feature of my music like it perhaps once was.
mm. You don't have that complete control that you do when you've got your hands over the top of it. I
No,
mean, like Bob Dylan, like it's whenever he has it on the rack, I feel like he's losing. I mean, it's cool that he has it, but he doesn't have the control of more traditional blues players when you've got that emphasis of accent that you can open and close it like a trumpet. In music,
yeah,
you've got a real control over
yeah,
that.
no, you can't do any of that sort of cupping stuff, and you are a little bit more limited. But there are some amazing rack players that you wouldn't know that they were playing both at the same time. The thing I really found difficult with that actually is having learnt the two instruments kind of separately, then sort of bringing them together and trying to play them together. I found quite challenging and still do.
Mm.
It, I think if you actually start trying to learn both together, it'll probably be a bit easier.
Mm. I know this Auckland band that had a harmonica player in it. I don't know if you know them. They're not really blues; they're more alternative. But they were called the Drab Do Riffs, and they had
Yes, yeah.
members of Supergroove. And I
Yep,
know that.
yep.
Yeah, I know. I remember seeing them live, and they had a funny mic on stage, and I actually looked into it. It was called the Green Bullet. So it's a
Yes.
specific,
Yep.
yeah, a specific harp mic. Did you use specific mics when you were when you were just a harp player and when you play harp with a rack?
Um, when I was a harp player, yes, I had a green bullet and played, through an amplifier. And you don't know, there's a whole range of different harmonica mics and amps and those that are sort of really into it. There are harmonica geeks that just get right into the microphones and the amps and the combinations and the vintage aspects of it and what little Walter played and on particular records, etc. So yeah, very definitely there are specific mics that harmonica players use. Not, I don't with a rack, but again, you can get specific mics that you clip onto your harmonica on a rack as well, that some guys use.
Mm.
Yeah.
Most people, though, if they've got the rack and they're also guitarists, they just use the vocal mic, like the old SM58 or whatever.
Yeah, just go up to the mic and blow, really.
Mm. So I was wondering if you could give me a little insight into how the live music scene in Wellington was different in the 90s. I'm interested because post-pandemic, venues are expensive to play at. Drinks are expensive. It's harder to get people there, and so much promotion. And some acts, all promotion is done on social media.
Yeah.
So how was the scene different? How did you promote a gig in, say, the 90s?
Yeah, well, it seems quite different. I'm not really that connected to it anymore in the sense that I just do relatively sporadic, periodic gigs these days. But back then, there were, residencies or semi-residencies. So as Cool Disposition, we might play 3 nights a week at a particular bar. And there seemed to be plenty of gigs around town. You just don't get that. I don't think any band's playing 3-4 days nights a week anymore. And what you were getting paid then was more than what you get paid for that sort of gig now too. It's quite a different scene, and I think that's just a reflection of entertainment options and a range of things. Obviously, economic factors as well, as you were talking about. So it's quite a different scene. And it's a different scene, I think, between those sort of bands that are doing covers and on that sort of more journeyman kind of track than ones that are doing original music and trying to push their own thing. Gigs tend to be obviously more one-off and promoted and ticketed and all of that sort of stuff.
Mm. Yeah, it's sort of a flow-on effect, isn't it? Because the drinks are more expensive and the bar wants people in, and then because they're more expensive, less punters, less people just walking off the street, and then less residency. So it's all a flow-on effect. I don't know what the answer is myself as a musician now, what to do about the scene, and residencies. Just bands would sacrifice so much in order to get that, just a designated, guaranteed slot. So it's fairly different, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. It's very different. And look, even before that, the 90s was probably kind of the end of it. Obviously, prior to that, through the 80s and the 70s, there were around the country residencies that bands would do. They could actually survive on it. So it's a very, very different scene now from what it was. But music survives, it adapts. People just find new ways to get their music to their audience, and live music still survives. It's just different. I guess we're seeing a lot more sort of, certainly in Wellington, community hall type gigs and different venue options. We've got things around Wellington like the Vogelmore Bowling Club hosting gigs. We've got Morgan's Clubhouse, which is a golf clubhouse just up north of Wellington a bit, hosting gigs. So just sort of, I guess, looking at different ways and different venues for gigs, not your traditional sort of bar.
How important is it that a venue has a particular genre of music that often plays there? Like, say, a Valhalla is known, and I know they don't specifically do metal, but they're kind of, if there's going to be a metal band, that's where they play. But there's other places that are more indie, and there's other places that are more hip hop or dub or reggae or whatever. So were there and are there now places that are more full country and blues?
Not so much. I mean, there is the Bluegrass Society in Wellington, which hosts regular gigs of both local and international acts, which is a really fantastic gig, but it's just a periodic thing rather than a venue. I don't think there's any sort of venues in Wellington that are particularly dedicated to that kind of music in the way, that some like Valhalla and so on might have sort of more genre-specific kind of audience. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Red Rocks Records.
I can't remember when we did that. That might have been early sort of 2000s. I just approached Nick Bollinger, who had set up Red Rocks Records really as a vehicle for putting out the Windy City Strugglers records. I was looking at putting out an album myself. There were various sort of like-minded artists around Wellington that were doing their own thing independently, and it struck me that it might make some sense for us to get together and use one kind of label and work sort of collaboratively on putting out like-minded artists of a particular genre. So that was the sort of idea and the genesis of it. Nick brought Chris Prowse into the mix, and the three of us went about sort of putting out some albums over the course of probably a 10-year period. We started out with a compilation album. We put out a couple of Windy City Strugglers ones. We put out one of mine, a Darren Watson album we put out. Shop Band was another one. So we did a range of albums over that period. But unfortunately, we sort of came a bit late to the party because CDs were, at the tail end of their popularity, and the ability to sort of make it work through streaming and download. The economics are a bit challenging for a label like that, and also the benefit that we could perhaps offer to artists as well.
Did you see the vinyl renaissance coming?
No, didn't see that coming. I'm not sure whether that would have made a difference to the success of the label for us, really. It's a pretty niche market then and still, really.
Yeah, very expensive to press.
Super expensive, yeah. And for the sort of music that we're doing, we'd be selling relatively low numbers. The volume wouldn't be there to make the economics work. It was really good fun. I enjoyed working with Chris and Nick on that. Learned a little bit about, the industry and the economics of it all, which are really challenging.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's, not to dwell on the past, but do you think that there's a point to labels now? How important is it that there's a label that has similar genre or just a particular taste, and people can rely on that label to have a host of artists, music that's similar? Is it important, or What do you
I
think?
think less so, I suspect. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it much, but I know certainly when I was sort of really getting into music, if it was on Chess or if it was on Alligator Records as a blues aficionado, you knew that it was going to be of a certain kind of quality. There's certain labels that you had some confidence in, and you'd check out their roster and their artists. And so I think there definitely was some benefit in a label. Obviously the bigger ones, Atlantic and Stax for your soul music and all of that sort of stuff.
Motown stuff and Chess and
Motown, but we don't really kind of see that anymore. So I think the influence of labels has probably diminished quite substantially. Yeah, I certainly don't. I mean, I check out artists because of, I don't know, reviews, or they come up on your Spotify lists or whatever. The way you get introduced to new artists and new music is quite different these days from what it was.
Now you need to trust the algorithm a little bit, don't you?
You do.
You listen to this, you might also like this, and you just go down the merry path. And
yeah.
So your third album is Something Blue.
It was my third album. Yep.
Yeah. So is that the most recent one, or is
no,
there a fourth?
I've just released one, Dog and Pony Show, which came out just a few weeks ago, 4th of April. So that's the latest, and that was produced by my friend Darren Watson. He helped me with the recording and production of it, and that's the first time I've used a producer.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So, how is Dog and Pony Show different from Something Blue? I feel like it's more country, less blues. Is that fair to say?
It is. It's probably more country, less blues. It doesn't have as much harmonica on it. It's more probably singer-songwritery, perhaps a bit kind of more. It's certainly more varied in terms of its palette, if you like. We've got some horns and strings and dobro guitar and accordion and some sort of flavors and instruments that I haven't used previously as well. So yes, it's all acoustic instruments as well. So it probably moves it towards that more country Americana feel than the blues.
Well, I was wondering, with a genre like that, or I love that portmanteau word like Kiwimericana.
Yeah.
Very cool. How important is it that between albums or of an artist's repertoire that it does change, given that genre is something that people like, that someone has a foot in the past? Is it important to change, or is it more important to stick with the stylistic aspects that make it great?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Really, I certainly, for me as a listener, if I've really liked an album, I kind of want the next one to be the same, and you sometimes get quite disappointed when an artist sort of takes it off track and does something different. But I think in order to sort of keep it interesting, stay relevant, you have to try some different things, and that's largely why I got Darren to help me with Dog and Pony Show, because if I hadn't involved him, it probably would have been much the same in terms of the instrumentation and the overall feel as the previous album, and I'm just not sure what that would have achieved really. So I needed some fresh perspective, and also somebody to sort of push me a little bit. Darren sent me back to the table to rewrite a few verses and change a few things up. So we did quite a lot of pre-production as well, and looking at the songs and how they were working or not working, really getting that sorted before we press record.
So having Darren Watson really allowed that experimentation just enough that you were doing something a little bit different from Something Blue.
it's that Darren's got a great feel and understanding for the sort of music that I do and like, and the genre that I work in. You know, he knows it, loves it, and he can sort of visualize what my songs would, you know, what's the best way to present these songs, perhaps in a way that's different from what I might have done. And quite early on, he had ideas of, well, this one we're going to put some accordion and we're going to get some horns, or we're going to get some strings, or whatever it might be, or this one we're just going to keep it basic to just you and the bass, or whatever it might be. So he had really strong sort of vision for the songs right from the outset.
So a little bit of experimentation, but still firmly in the genre of.
Oh, yeah, firmly in the genre. No, we're certainly not pushing the boat out too much, and keeping largely acoustic instruments.
I heard from a few other musicians that there's little pockets in New Zealand where there's country is really appreciated. So the wild west coast of the South Island, for example, Gisborne, I've heard, Northland, and Kapiti Coast, I've heard. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's like little pockets where blues is country, I was saying, is sort of more celebrated. How much do you feel like country is associated with farming and agriculture?
I don't think too much, to be honest. I mean, I don't really know. I haven't sort of noticed those regional sort of appetite for country, because I haven't been out and toured for a long time. But the thing that does surprise me is that some of the bigger international country acts seem to be hugely popular in New Zealand. I mean, Chris Stapleton recently announced a couple of shows next year in Auckland, and they sold out. And I tried to get a ticket, and I was 20,000th in the queue,
Wow.
to get a ticket.
Wow.
And he sold out 2 shows at Spark Arena in just hours. And I just had no idea he was that big. So there's this kind of underground love of country music in New Zealand, but we don't see it kind of flow through to the domestic artists for whatever reason. But Luke Combs as well was big. There's been some quite big American artists come through.
I find it's a bit of an interesting conundrum sometimes with those genres, because they're not super celebrated. I don't see massive amounts of posters for not just country. Sometimes it's blues, sometimes it's jazz, other forms of music that aren't alternative, hip-hop, rock, or metal, or pop continue to be huge, but they're not really mediated much. I don't see them much on social media. I don't see posters. I don't see things on buses or billboards. And it's a conundrum, because I feel the reason why it's not visible is because it doesn't need the promotions, because people will go, people will fill the seats.
Yeah, I think that's right. Seems to be the case, certainly for these country artists. And it's it surprises me that the sort of people that come out of the woodwork and do social media posts about not getting tickets or getting tickets to these concerts. There's just, social media has obviously had a huge role to play in terms of spreading the word about some of these artists that otherwise wouldn't have that kind of reach without massive amounts of record company support and promotion.
So I ask, this is a little fun question. I usually ask everyone I interview on my show. Usually if I've got a band, it's usually fun because I try to get the other people to answer it. But in your case, you're going to have to answer yourself. So I usually say, and it started when we had lockdowns and COVID, and sometimes there'd be one musician who couldn't play. So if there was a musician, living or dead, who could replace you because you weren't able to play, but they knew all your songs, they knew all your lyrics, and they could do the job magically, who would you pick?
Who would I pick? Oh, goodness me.
So you've got a gig, but at the last minute you can't do it, but you've got the magical ability to to get anyone, living or dead, some great musician.
So to step in for me and do my set. I'd probably go for John Hyatt at his prime. If I could pick John Hyatt, sort of late 80s, early 90s, and get him to sub for me and do my set, that'd be awesome. I'd love to see that.
Which years do you...
Well, I guess the sort of period for John Hyatt that was hugely influential for me was Bring the Family on. Bring the Family was an album that I just played over and over and couldn't get enough of, really. And he's had a huge influence, I guess, on my shift to being a singer-songwriter of that kind of ilk. There are a lot of others, but he's certainly been a big one for me.
Nice. And what would be your dream slot to open for an international band?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Doesn't have to be an arena.
It
could even be
probably.
Really...
if Tom Petty was still alive, I'd say Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Excellent.
Or even just sort of a smaller gig. I mean, if you're talking sort of big league, I would say Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers if Tom was still alive. Sort of a much smaller gig. I don't know, actually. A guy called Ron Sexsmith has always been a guy I've loved and would love to open a show for him. He's been to New Zealand, I think, a couple of times. Yeah, those two.
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
Nice. So, Dog and Pony Show is out now. Is there a single sort of spearheading the release?
Yeah, we've released a song called Promised Land, came out first with a lyric video, which is up on YouTube and on my Facebook page, and then we released another video for Holy Smoke at the time the album came out. So there's a couple of videos, a couple of singles. Yeah.
Nice one. I asked because I was wondering if you wanted to have some music playing perhaps underneath this interview. Maybe those two songs would probably be nice to play underneath, or maybe something else that from anything really, but it would be cool if it was your own music.
Yeah. No, those two tunes would be good picks, I think. Yeah.
Nice one. Nice. Well, thanks for that. A little step into the past, but also talking about future experimentation, a little bit of daydreaming. Is there anything else that you'd like to do a bit of a shout out or mention?
I guess, I mean, I'd like to do a shout out to Darren, really, for the work that he put into Dog and Pony Show, and because it's an album I'm really proud of. I think it sounds great, and that's largely down to his energy, enthusiasm, and the hours that he put into it to sort of scrub it up, really. So big shout out to Darren, really. It wouldn't have happened without his his energy and enthusiasm for it.
You being a producer on your on the other three albums probably helped a lot, because you knew how to generate the songs, layer them up, record them properly, get in the right mood. So you probably brought that to the table.
Yeah, although I think, sometimes you're your sort of worst enemy as a producer of your own stuff. I was quite particular about how I wanted things to sound, and I also enjoyed, particularly with this album, not having to worry about organising sessions or getting musicians together, or actually having somebody else control that aspect. I could just turn up and play. I was told what to play, whether it was good enough. I didn't have to exercise any of the judgment about any of that stuff. I just and it was nice just to be able to just that aspect of it. Just do the performance, and
Is there much improvisation
have some.
on some of the musicians' behalf, or your own? Was there a little? I mean, I know in blues that there's often little room to play in, and sometimes the take that gets chosen surprises the artist. It's like, "Are you sure about that one?" It's like, "No, that one was gutsy." It's like, "Oh, I played a wrong note." It's like, "No, it's got some color. That was good. I know it wasn't the right note, but it just works. Trust me." Was there any moments where you really needed to trust Darren against your own judgment?
Oh, totally. A lot of them, a number of them. There was one tune, Promised Land, actually. I'm pretty sure we used the very first take of that, and I just kind of launched into it when we were recording, without really communicating with the band, and they just kind of fell into place and followed, and it was the best take. It just had the energy, and perhaps because we all weren't 100% sure where it was going, or how it was going to play out, that everybody was sort of totally engaged. For whatever reason, it sounded great, and I guess there are a number of other things with the album. The horns on a couple of tracks are certainly not things that would ever have entered my and I just had to trust Darren that was the best treatment for the song,
Yeah, nice one. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Anyway, mate, thank you so much.
All good.
I'll send you a link.
Nice to chat.
Yeah, you too. Catch you later.
Sounds good.
See ya.
You, bye.